Hello everyone and welcome back. I realised I didn't record an intro for last week's episode, but here we are, week 3 on the road, second video released more or less on schedule, so you're welcome. We started our Sunday with some chores. Noticing that the mattress had been getting damp due to condensation, we took the opportunity of the nice weather to air the tent and mattress before hearing a rustling in the bush and making an unlikely friend with a shingleback skink, who was initially curious and then grew quickly quite bold, helping me with my video editing last week, before slightly overstaying his welcome and helping himself to some of my cereal before being shooed away. After this, we head to the Narang Ferry camp area on the edge of Lake Alexandrina, but at the high risk of mosquitoes, quickly took ourselves home to the tent, but not before enjoying a lovely sunset.
We woke up bright and early and started the day by crossing the river in the car ferry, which was a weirdly enjoyable experience. We pulled up to the barrier, and within a box is a button you press to inform the ferry attendant of your presence. You drive onto the ferry for free, and it's a quick 2 minutes across the river. We headed to Murray River Town, where we had the usual weekly chores to do. After this, we drove across Murray Bridge and sat by the river to have lunch and planned our next steps. We drove across drier land and by many, many vineyards, clearly in the wine state, to our next camp and enjoyed a movie night in our home cinema, my tablet velcroed to the ceiling. The park we stayed at this evening demonstrated very well how noisy the wildlife can be while we try to sleep, with birds, crickets, koalas and various other creatures vocalising their presence.
Tuesday, we woke up with the goal of climbing Mount Lofty. Although realising that you could drive directly to the summit, we decided to challenge ourselves by starting the journey at Waterfall Gully. The drive here was beautiful, moving through vineyards and a lovely mountainside forest, with peaks along the way up at a distant view of Adelaide. The almost 4-kilometre hike was mostly uphill, and the return trip was meant to take us 4 hours, which we challenged ourselves rather ambitiously to halve. Starting in the gully, we quickly reached our first waterfall of the trip before continuing on to a second, and then shortly followed by a third, stopping to admire views and catch our breaths. Sometimes more of the latter than the views themselves. We made it to the top in under an hour, very tired and hot, but in utter awe of the views across the landscape, with the city of Adelaide in the distance, which we admired while we had yet another scenic lunch in the shade of the Mount Lofty monument, all while under the watchful eye of a mad-eyed crow. After an hour's rest, we sprinted back down, only stopping to admire a cockatoo and cool ourselves in the waterfall. We headed to Shiloh Hills Park, where we got ourselves a shower and got ourselves an early night's rest.
We had a relaxed morning, soaking up the sun and views before heading to a wine tasting at Chalk Hill in the afternoon. The sommelier was very knowledgeable and tailored the selections based on our palates. This particular vineyard chose an Italian approach to winemaking with a twist which results in a shorter lifespan for the wine, being a better taste, younger rather than maturing or improving with time. With this approach, they have won King and Queen of the region for one of their wines in the last 3 weeks. Feeling merry, we stopped along the Shiraz Trail, where we got our chairs out and read in the sunshine. From here, we braved a drive onto the beach alongside family cars before meeting with Alicia and Ed, family friends, for dinner. We enjoyed ourselves so much we forgot to take any footage.
Although we forgot to film, we had agreed to meet up with Alicia early the next morning to walk their Kelpie Olive. As we walked up the beach, I attempted to tire Olive out by throwing balls, and I think I just about succeeded, although she was very much still fixated on her beloved ball. After a wholesome morning, we head into Adelaide, passing through Glenelg before checking into the Adelaide Showground campsite for a spot of lunch. After this, we head into Adelaide Central via bus and past Chinatown and into their Central Commercial Market, which is a bustling hub in the centre of Adelaide full of various street vendors. Along the way to the information centre, we were also reminded that Christmas was just around the corner, even in the heat. We went through Adelaide Arcade to the State Library, which was another beautiful library full of old books and history of Adelaide and South Australia. We were lacking wildlife, so headed up to Froome Park along the Adelaide River in the hopes of spotting some flying foxes, which is a species of large bat. We spotted some way up in the trees and moved in for a closer look, and started seeing more and more and more and more until they were literally surrounding us in all directions. We were amazed by how much, following a Christmas theme, they looked like baubles hanging from the fir trees from a distance. As we walked away to the Botanic Gardens, we took in the variety of birds, trees and plants and beautiful greenhouses. I conducted some ducks and enjoyed a Mohican pigeon. And from here we headed back to camp for dinner and to get ready for a night on the town. And our first stop was Maybe May, which was a bar with a speakeasy vibe and a hidden door. I had a lager cocktail and liked it so much that I managed to get the recipe. With our next stop, we headed to Bank Street Social, which was an exposed brick underground bar. And after that, we headed to Cherry, where the music was quite hit and miss. So after enjoying just a few songs, we headed back for food and to make our way back to camp.
We started early, cleaning the fridge, then headed out of Adelaide to Manham Waterfalls, which, much like us, felt a bit dried up. This was the hottest day of the trip so far, at 38 degrees. We abandoned visiting the water at the bottom and made our way back. Next stop was Manham Centre, where we wanted to see the Murray Princess and its predecessor, which are both paddle steamboats. And luckily, she was on the dock. We set off and enjoyed river views before getting the ferry again, this time crossing the Murray River, before arriving at Big Bend Lookout Free Camp. We've learnt that Australian flies like nothing more than flying around your face, so I very quickly went up to the tent to make us salad for dinner, with Oscar bravely passing me everything we needed before joining me, and enjoying dinner with the sun setting over Murray River. While we were waiting for the stars to come out, we noticed a few ants within the tent and found they were climbing up the ladder and coming in through an opening in the Velcro lining of the tent. We quickly vacated the tent and moved the car away from the ant's nest, and Oscar worked at getting rid of the remaining ants and sealing the Velcro again. In that time, the wind started to pick up, and by the time we returned to the now ant-free tent, the wind was strong enough to shake the car. It goes without saying that we did not sleep well that evening.
On Saturday, we woke up. We decided the best thing to do after a couple hours sleep was to head on a hot walk along the coast. After asking a local sculpture for directions, we went to the main sites of Wackery, which seemed to be painted silos. But in all honesty, they were pretty enjoyable, and managed to pick up some fruit juice from Nippy's, which is a big fruit manufacturer set up in the town, before finding a free camp, this time enjoying a bug-free sunset and a great night's sleep.